So we're going to look at Genesis 4 and 16. We're going to look at the land of Cain, the land of Canaan. When we look at the star systems, the Canis, Minor, and Major in the land of Canaan, this is what we're going to be looking into today's lesson in regards to Shem's portions, the land of Shem, the lands of the immortal serpent, the lands of the northern and the southern hemisphere for the ancient recordings of the primordial beginnings, from the ones who first formed from their mother's earth here, the primordial beginnings. So we're going to look here, the land of Canaan, the ancient land of Canaan, which is the Americas, and the beginnings, the prehistoric beginnings. When we understand the formation of calendars, the beginning of the calculating of time. When we look at ancient peoples that have been known to form the alphabet, the Phoenicians, and this background of the Phoenicians is essential to looking into this ancient Chaldean civilizations and these ancient Adamic peoples that existed here in the Americas pre-Diluvian, before the flood. So we're going to start here in Genesis, the 4th chapter, and then we're going to go into some readings here about Israelites in the Americas and about the ancient Shemites in the Americas and the first calendars of these advanced civilizations. First, we're going to use the scriptures. So it says in Cain, when we look at Cain, which is, we look at Cain, Canaan, Canine, the Okeanos, the ocean. The Okeanos, the ocean is known as the Okeanos. When you look at Canis, Canis Minor, Canis Major, and the wandering, when you understand winter wander, W-A-N-D-E-R, wander, and the wandering, this is where the wandering on the water and the canoe making and the connection with Canaan, canoe, corn, maize, and this primordial beginning. It says here, Cain. The name is with where the name Canaan, the first child, also of a place in Palestine, and of an Oriental tribe. So when you understand Oriental, this term, Orient, as you must understand, I'm going to break down real quick here. So, just real quick, so when you look at light, what is light? Or E, or aura. Alright? So when you look at light, aura, ori, and the Okeanos, and the light in the beginnings, and Cain. So you see here light, aura, ori, and the Orient. Now, the reason why the Orient, the western border of the Pacific, this land of the rising sun is called the Orient in regards to its orientation being the first place of the sun's solar rising. So we understand that significance of the Pacific Ocean and the naming of it, the dwelling place of the dead, the resting seas. So to understand the peaceful ocean, dead, and what judgment and what takes place, what we see in the ending of the day, the judgment of the sun. So when you see this in this ancient telling, and they're talking about the judgment of the sun, Abel, we understand Abal and Baal, the bull, and the rain and thunder gods, and the connection with the remorse of mourning. We understand death and mourning and the connection with the actual mourning, and these things being represented in the time, space, and matter continuum. So it says, Canaan went out from the presence of the Lord to dwell in the land of Nod. Now when we look at Nod is to wander. The name of vagrancy, Nod, the land of Cain. So understand this city of Nod is in existence in this primordial beginnings of this ancient telling. And it says, and Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch. And he builded a city and called the name of that city after the name of his son Enoch. So we look at the first biblical writings here. The first chapter 4 here, the first naming of the city, first city in the Bible, pre-Diluvian city, is being named by Cain's son Enoch. So when you look at what some say is Tinoch, Tichlan, or Teotihuacan, and these different areas in Mesoamerica, which are looked at to be these lands of Canaan as well, as we're going to go into the text and read more about. But let's walk into this. So we understand the prehistoric beginnings of the Americas, the mound building, the tools, the prehistoric tools, the flint stones, the bedrock, these first forms of masonry, these first forms of artificial building of instruments we find here in its most ancient form, in the form of an empire here in the Americas, with a burial, with language, petroglyphs, showing a connection with these ancient rituals and burials that we see connected with the modern rituals of religion, dogma. So when you see dogma, dogs and the dog star, and these particular things, the sea dog, and these things have a representation to navigations on the water. So when you look at the wandering in the place where Cain and him having to wander, this journey sometimes is looked in ancient cultures as a journey that took place on a canoe. So this is how we get the connection with Cain, the canoe, and maize, the corn god, in a lot of different Pacific, Hawaiian, Polynesian cultures. When you look at Cain and corn and the Lokono, and when you look at this connection, which we're going to get into, what it means to be a priest. When we look at the priest and the Kahan, and the connection with Cain's name holds a deep responsibility. We understand the responsibilities of the priesthood was to do judgment, was to condemn and put to death those that had done sin. So we look at the offerings of Cain and Abel. Abel's sin offering and the punishment for sin is death. As we see Cain being the first to do this judgment on his brother, to learn the instructions of judgment. This is what the land of Cain would be known for, the land of judgment. So as we see here, Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare his son Enoch. Enoch, Chanok, is also one of the names of the sons of Seth, who replaces Abel after Cain has to do judgment on Abel. Adam and Eve give birth to another child named Seth, and through Seth is where Noah's bloodline comes from. And unto Enoch, so this is unto Enoch, Cain's son Enoch, was born Ariad, and he began his children. And so when we look at to their children and what they start to accomplish, right, as we go here, the 21st verse, and it says, and his brother's name was Jubal, and he was the father of such all that handled the harp and organ. So as you see here, these are some of the beginning stages, the primordial beginnings of the sons of Cain, and you see instruments, the handling of harps and organs. And Zillah, she also bare Tubal Cain, and the structure of every artificer in brass and iron, and the sisters of Tubal Cain was Naamah. So the reason why we're going to this is to show you that Cain builds the first biblical city after he flees into the land of Nod. He builds the city after the name of his son Enoch. His children become some of the first to handle harp, organ, and do many different artificial instruments. So when you see these things in prehistoric America, that is important to understand why. When we look at the sons of Cain, now let's go to Genesis, the 10th chapter. Since we understand the sons of Cain, and it says here, now these are the generations of the sons of Noah. Noah comes from the line of Adam and Eve through Seth, who Cain had to do the judgment upon Abel, and so then they had another son, Seth. Seth is where Noah comes from. Noah and his sons are the only ones to survive this great cataclysm that is known and recorded throughout every universal culture in the world. So here the Bible is explaining this as, now these are the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and unto them were born after the flood. So when you look at the flood, Mabul, Ba'ul. When you look here, this connection in the Shakamuls and the holding of the bull, the fertility, rain god, deities, all these things have a significance when you understand water and the floods in this particular time of heading from the Scorpio to the Sagittarius to Capricorn to these particular times of the winter where this wandering across this southern crucifix of the southern tropic began, which is a mark after the death of Abel, who was the first to be slaughtered on this December 21st, going into what would be known as Christmas, Xmas, for us. So we look at the one who was first to be the sacrifice, this Lamb of God sacrifice for sin, was Abel, the vain one. So when you look at the flood, the water, this particular significance of the water, the Mem, the 40, you have to understand the primordial beginnings. It says in the rain gods. The sons of Japheth, Gomer, Madai, Javan, Tubal, and Meshech and Teras. And the sons of Gomer were Ashkenaz. So when you look at Ashkenazis, Jews, people that say that they're Jews, a lot of these people that come from the Gregoria mountain areas here above Turkey, in this area of the Caucasus, where a lot of the Japheth lands are in these cold regions. When you look at these particular people that call themselves Ashkenazi Jews, you have to understand they feel entitled to these lands when you understand that Japheth shall dwell in the tents of Shem. So when you look at some of these areas here that are above the Caucasus, above in these cold regions, these people now dwell in Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, and to the different areas of Shem. And we'll see why that has taken place in this chapter 10 of Genesis. So it's given the names of the children of Japheth, who was one of the three sons of Noah after the flood. And it says, these are the isles of the Gentiles, divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families and nations. For the sons of Japheth. So now when you look here, we were talking earlier about how Canaan and the fame of Canaan in that particular time is what eventually would make the name of the land of Canaan become that land. Let's go back to the 9th chapter of Genesis. This is important to understand. Genesis 9. And 19. Now these are the sons of Noah, and of them of the whole earth overspread Noah began to be an husbandman, and he planted a vineyard, and he drank of the wine, and was drunken, and was uncovered within his tent. So now this is right after the flood, the rainbow, the sign of the covenant. Now these are the three, and Ham, the father of Canaan. So we're talking earlier about Cain, and how this name of Canaan, where it comes from. We understand Canaan in the pre-Diluvian period, as we went to Genesis the fourth chapter, this land area was one of the first ancient first cities, one of the first civilizations. This is why we find these mounds here in the Americas, these ancient mound building culture here in the Americas, because this is the ancient land of Canaan. This is why the Moors, as we're going to bring out later, refer to themselves as Canaan land Moors or Canaanite Moors. Coming back to the understanding of what Canaan represented before the flood. So it's one of the first known biblical cities in the text to be named after Canaan. So this is why this land is significant. So Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brethren without. So this is important to understand why the land of Canaan, which was Shem's portion, was given to Ham's son Canaan, and that's why they named him Canaan. But we're going to get into it. So Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father. Remember, Noah began to be an husband and planted a vineyard, and he drank of the wine and was drunken, and he was uncovered. Now, if you read in the text, to be uncovered can refer to your land or your wife, your possessions. So that's important to understand. So Ham is seeing a portion of land that's being uncovered, and Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of this land of his father, and told his two brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both the shoulders, and went backward and covered the nakedness of their father. And their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. And Noah woke from his wine and knew what his younger son had done unto him. So the son of Ham is Canaan. We understand the significance of that being. This is looked as he took his father's wife, or he took his father's land, or one and the same, and then produced a child with his father's wife, and that child was named Canaan. And this is what is being said about Canaan, because of the action that gave birth to Canaan, being that Ham took his father's nakedness and a portion that was going to be given to the eldest son, Shem, that his son Canaan eventually ended up taking. So it says, he said, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren." And he said, "Blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant." So this is why when you see a lot of especially King Tut, and a lot of these ancient Shemitic kings during the time of the Hyksos and a lot of different areas in this area had this dehumanizing of a lot of the people in that area that were in the land of Canaan. When they came in during the time of Joshua, slaughtering these people that were in these nations, killing all with no remorse under the power of God. So these things are written in the text and written in English, and because we have been disconnected with warfare, we've been disconnected with territories, on how to govern territories. And so he said, "Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be." And he said, "Blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant." So when you look today in these areas of Pakistan, Iran, and parts of India, you'll find still to this day the lighter skinned individuals who came from the Japhetic areas ruling over the ancient Hamitic Canaanite people that still dwell in these particular lands. And that's worldwide along these tropics. You'll see that taking place. Whether it's here in the Americas, we understand how from Alaska, Canada, how these Inuit, Euro-Asian tribes have came down to the subtropic areas of our land areas and set up tents and dwellings in these areas of these mound building cultures and areas here, even in the America. So that's important when we look at Genesis, the 10th chapter, and we look here at the sons of Ham, and it says Cush and Mizraim, and Put and Canaan are the sons of Cush. So, and the sons of Ham, Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. And the sons of Cush, Seba, Havilah. These are also the names of the sons of Shem. So it's interesting. You can see the Hamitic sons from Ham uncovering his father's nakedness. You can see how that has twined the naming of territories. When you look at Havilah and Sheba, which also happen to be Shemitic names of the Shemitic sons and their territories. And this is important to understand that connection, because you'll see we'll break as it'll explain here. Now the sons of Rama and Sheba and Dedan, and Cush begot Nimrod. Now Nimrod began to be a mighty one. When you look at a mighty one, and we were talking earlier about light, the mighty ones, the great Maors, during the pre-Diluvian time. When you look at Orion's belt, these things were star systems and how they related to themselves here in the earth, to name these territories, to name these land areas, and then they would name the children that came out of the womb in these landmark celestial territories after these things. So when you see here, and Cush begot Nimrod, he became a mighty one in the earth, and he was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And at the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh, in the lands of Shinar. And they went, and out of the land went forth Ashur. This is a Shemitic son. And building Nineveh, that's a Shemitic name of a Shemitic lands, in the Kala. And so when you look at these different lands, and then you go into the lands of Canaan, here, these also are the Shemitic lands. So we understand Ham's son Cush being a mighty hunter and taking over these different lands of the son, and then you see the sons of Shem, and you see here the children of the sons of Shem, Elam and Ashur. These are the same lands mentioned here that Nimrod took over. And out of his land went forth Ashur. So you see, you have to understand why these are being double named. It's because they're being named after the territory, the landmass. Because the naming of the landmass came first before these tribes came about. So they're being named after their nativity. So this is why we find Canaan and Canaanites not being direct descendants of Cain, but because they're in the land that Cain first built the city, they called themselves Canaanites based upon the land's territorial history. So when we look at Shem's portions and the lands given to Shem, this was the issue. So we see in the beginning, in Genesis, in the beginning, right? In verse 14, it says, and God said, let there be lights. And when we look at those lights, it says Ma'or. So when we look at Moors, the great lights, the Ma'or, the candle, the candlesticks, the 7 golden candlesticks. You understand the 7, the Naga, Tupac Amuru. The connection is deep. So we look at here and it says, and God said, let there be great lights in the firmament of heaven, to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons, and for days and years. This is telling you right here, the heavenly realm is doing this to a point to where these things can divide the seasons and be indications based upon being celestial lights for days and for years to indicate a separation from day to day. This observance of sunrise to sunset in this particular land of the Americas is why this land was so essential, because you needed to be here to observe the setting and the rising in this polarity being on the pole, the navel of the earth. And so when you look at the navel, the Virgo and the Libra, in the embodiment of the astral metaphysical of the earth, based upon the zodiac of the tropical, when you look at light, Aries, and the Ram, all the way down to the 6 month of Virgo, this particular time, these seasons of light are looked at as spring and summer. And then from Libra to Pisces is looked as fall and winter. So what is taking place during this particular time? The sun, the soul, is moving from tropic to tropic, from the northern tropic to the southern tropic, which it takes 365 days, 0.24, blah 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 type shit, right? So this is important when you understand the Mount Ors, Orion's belt, the mighty hunter, the serpent's hook, Cain, and the ancient beginnings and the lands of America.